Hello, I'm David Spader, and welcome to this episode of On Principle. I recently got a call from a leader who planned to send a problem manager to training in an attempt to improve this person's performance. His initial question seemed a good one. Which of your workshops do I send him to? However, I was immediately concerned. Why? Because this approach had a 90% likelihood of failure. This manager was making the same mistake many others make when addressing employee performance issues. He was confusing the two components that drive performance in all human beings: motivation and capability. When leaders aren't able to effectively distinguish between the two, they waste their time, energy, and effort. And if you get it wrong, it doesn't matter how hard you try or how many good intentions you have. So let's take a minute to explore these concepts to ensure you're taking the correct action to resolve those performance issues you face. The first action to address an employee's performance issue is to determine the root cause. When dealing with people, there are really only two types of possibilities. It will be primarily a motivation or a capabilities issue. It is a capability issue if the employee can't do the job. It's a motivation issue if the employee won't do the job or doesn't like it. Unfortunately, many managers find distinguishing between can't and won't very difficult. We found the following question to be very helpful in sorting it out quickly. If their life depended on it, could they do it? If the answer is yes, they could do it, then the primary issue you need to address is probably motivational because they're choosing not to do it. If the answer is no, the person cannot do it even if their life depended on it, then the primary issue you need to address is related to their capabilities. And as you'll see, this distinction is critical. Let's start with motivational issues. As mentioned earlier, the manager who called me wanted to know which training event to send his manager to. When addressing a motivational issue, the solution is typically not a training event. After probing a little, I discovered this manager had attended both of the training events he was inquiring about previously. He had the knowledge to do the job. When I asked this boss, could he do this work if his life depended on it, he paused and then said, "Of course." A few more questions and this leader realized the real issue was that this manager enjoyed being more hands-on, didn't like managerial paperwork, and really didn't like holding people accountable. He'd rather be their friend. Sending this manager to training would have simply wasted money and time. We had the wrong root issue. This manager was capable, he just didn't like his responsibilities. The key to addressing motivational issues is to gain the genuine commitment of the employee to resolve the problem. This often requires exploration of both the positive and negative consequences of the employee's actions. In this case, it was a heart-to-heart about whether this manager really wanted to do the work of being a manager. Now, when someone's choosing not to do the job, it also indicates there is not a positive or negative consequence strong enough to motivate them to action. It also tells us that not doing the work is more rewarding to them than doing it. So, now let's take a look at capabilities. When we have identified that the primary issue is related to an employee's capabilities, it's important to acknowledge that the primary responsibility to resolve it lies with the manager. Why? Because if the employee is motivated to do the job and is trying, but their manager has not provided the resources and direction to develop the skills they need, then it's the manager who is responsible for the lack of performance. After all, who put the employee into the job before they were ready? The manager. Now, regardless of whether the issue is a capability or a motivation issue, it will require ongoing follow-up. Research over the last 50 years has consistently shown us that 80 to 90% of all people need help from outside themselves to develop new habits, regardless of whether they are primarily a capabilities or a motivation issue. That means that managers who issue commands and don't follow up are doomed to failure 80 to 90% of the time. Now, the very first follow-up should be very soon after addressing the issue. This increases the likelihood you catch the employee doing it right, or at least attempting to. You can then provide positive feedback or redirect if necessary. As a rule of thumb, I like to schedule at least 3 follow-ups and communicate that with the employee so they know you'll be helping them by providing this accountability. It's all about improving our odds. And remember, as Harvey Firestone once said, it is only as we develop others that we permanently succeed. Understanding how to effectively diagnose and address both motivation and capabilities issues will greatly increase your success rate. Good luck, and I'll see you again in a few weeks.